Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your first weekly Ichimoku wrap for 2017. It's Sunday night, January 1st. This is for the week ending on the 30th on Friday. So we're going to start off looking at the ES. I did draw some fibs here that may or may not come in handy. I drew them the way I draw fibs, which is using real candle bodies. So this is a swing low close here and a swing high close here so far. So last week we put in a rather bearish candle, but I think that candle actually put in a higher high. The high was 2269.50 and the prior week's high was actually 2269.50 also. So actually it's I don't know if that counts for as an outside candle or what, if the value is the same at the top. Maybe somebody else would know. So anyway, so I'm not really sure whether we can confirm a trend change to the downside. We might as well say we can. So we closed pretty close to the lows. We're still pretty extended over the cloud. We're very extended over the cloud and still pretty extended over the flat Tenkan-sen. We also have the Kijun-sen sneaking up here looking for a potential bear cross. So we'll see if that comes into play when the new candle opens up. But still overall in Ichimoku terms, everything is still quite bullish for the ES. We could get a further pullback maybe to the 61.8, which happens to be where this prior candle is sitting right on, 21.91. Or we could pull back to the 50% of this range here, which is 21.70, or all the way down to the Tenkan-sen at 21.50.75. Any of those moves would still be completely bullish. A loss of the 21.50.75 would make things incrementally less bullish, but we're still overall bullish and above the cloud, so we will just see what happens. Let's look at crude. So we had another up week for crude. We did put in a higher high and a higher low, so we're still in an uptrend. This prior doji type candle looked like it could have suggested the potential for a trend change to the downside, but that did not happen. So things are still looking quite bullish. I'm sort of using this neckline that I've drawn as my line in the sand for whether or not there's still the potentiality of this gap fill, and then also the measured move of this inverse head and shoulders pattern that I've been talking about week after week, which is all the way up at 76, 72. So right now I'm focused on the levels that this gap window, that's what it's called in Ichimoku terms, is demarking, which is the bottom is at 54.90 and the top is at 56.50. So 54.90 is the first level I'm looking at potential resistance to the upside. So we'll see what happens when and if we get to that level, and also we'll keep an eye on the neckline for potential loss of that. But overall, crude is bullish in Ichimoku terms on the weekly time frame. Let's look at some other indexes. Let's look at the Russell. Russell bull flagging was getting pretty overbought there. Not technically all the way overbought, but looking kind of extended above the cloud. We do have a flat Tenkan-sen suggesting a mean reversion move towards the flat Tenkan-sen. We also have the same kind of situation where the Kijun-sen is coming up looking for a potential bear cross. So we'll see if that happens. I can see that we have obvious horizontal support that could come into play down around 13.15 area on the Russell if we do get further pullback going into the new year. Let's look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, more solidly bearish candle in my opinion, after putting in a new high, trading lower and heading towards the Tenkan-sen for potential support at 47.76.50 or wherever that is when the new candle opens up. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be flat, reflecting the bearishness of this candle. Uh, you know, we do have some other obvious horizontal support levels, like this area where these three candles, these four candles supported. This was sort of resisted there at around 48. Let's call it 4810, 4800. Let's call it 4800. How about that? So keep an eye on that 4800 level for support, and if we don't support there, a little bit lower, 76.50 should come into play. Right. But still, overall, completely bullish. This is a really thick, supportive cloud coming up. All right, let's see. Let's look at the Dow. Everybody's been talking about Dow 20K. It's really annoying when these random numbers come into play in the media. But so the Dow put in a red candle for this first time in a while, but we're very overbought. I mean, if you're overbought on the weekly, we're quite overbought. This has been a really fast move above the cloud, but we do have a nice supportive, healthy looking cloud for further price action higher. It is flat here for quite a while into the spring. So we could get some sideways action, which would be healthy before another move up. If we do continue heading lower, we have this area of potential support around 19. Let's call it 19,150, something like that, 19,125, and then it looks like we might have a small gap here, but I'm not really sure about that. But then the Tenkan Sen will definitely offer support at 18,676. So keep an eye on those levels for the Dow moving forward. Let's move on to some metals. Let's look at gold. Gold did put in a reversal to the upside, did put in a higher high and a higher low, so confirmed trend change to the upside after the prior week's doji candle suggested a bottoming type situation here. We are going to have resistance on gold when the Chikou, this red line here representing price action time shift 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks in this case, comes and hits the top of the cloud here at 1176.90. This is a really important and handy thing to know when you're using Ichimoku charts, is when the Chikou comes into resistance or support, price action will do so also. You can see where that came into play over here. Some good examples of that. You know, found support at the bottom of the cloud here, very key. And then if we do, if the Chikou is able to break through the cloud, if we do continue the move higher, then we'll also have resistance up here at the cloud. So next week, that's going to be at about 12.12, something like that, 12.11.50. If we get a move that high, then we break into the cloud, we will have resistance also at the flat Tenkan Sen inside the cloud at 12.31.30 or wherever it happens to be when the new candle opens up. This flat cloud bottom could very well attract price higher. If this up move starts failing and we turn back lower, the Chikou is going to have support all the way down until, say, around 1100. Specifically, like next week, the level is going to be 1097, 1098.90. So that would be a pretty big move. So not necessarily expecting that, but you never know. If the dollar gets going higher, you know, the gold bounce could be canceled. Let's look at silver. Silver put in a weekly close again underneath the cloud, so silver is bearish in Ichimoku terms. We do have a flat Tenkan Sen above and a flat cloud above, so those could attract mean reversion price action to the upside. But you notice that the Chikou was not able to break out over the cloud here. Made an effort to. You can see by the topping tail of last week's candle, but did put in a close under the top of the cloud, so that's significant here. So keep an eye on that Chikou and whether or not it can get over the cloud neck this week. That level is at about 1606. That's or it's being a stickler. If it does get over, if the Chikou gets over there, it's not going to have resistance for much higher, but we are going to need to worry about the cloud itself. And I'm going to just, it's a little bit hard to tell exactly where the candle is going to be, but we're looking at resistance all the way up at where basically where the Tenkan-sen is, so around 1734 for silver. Then we do have also the cloud at 1742, which is going to be resistance for quite a long time, all the way into the middle of next year. That's about it for silver. Let's look at the bonds. Let's look at the 30-year Treasury bond ZB. Also confirmed reversal, trend change to the upside. We see a pretty healthy looking candle suggesting that we could see a higher move. Although when I was looking at this earlier, I did see some support on shorter, some resistance on shorter time frames like the daily here. You see that the daily came into the downward facing Kijun-sen and was rejected, so there is potential for resistance here at ZB on the daily time frame. So keep an eye on that if you are trading, if you are trying to trade bullishly on ZB. But let's go back to the weekly. So if we do get a continued move to the upside, we actually have a little gap to fill. I'll show you right here. It's an open body gap. So that level is going to be at 151. 24, potential for resistance, and then all the way to the gap fill area, which is is 152.29, the open of this green candle here. So if that gap gets filled and we move higher, then we're going to have resistance at the Tenkan-sen above 156.01. So we have some decent resistance levels to work with here. Also, the Chikou could come into resistance at the cloud. That's going to be probably around here, so maybe this little nubbin of cloud will potentially come into play, and that little cloud nubbin is located at 154.20, so keep an eye on that level as well for ZB. Let's look at the 10-year ZN. ZN put in a decent bounce last week, and we also have some gap fills, potential gap fills in ZN that could come into play. And that level is at this open level for this candle here, 124.235, and then this close level for this candle here, which is 125.080. If we do get over this window area, then we do have a flat Tenkan-sen to potentially attract price at 126.230. We were previously oversold, and we are now no longer oversold. That's significant also. Still, the the Treasury complex is quite bearish on the weekly time frame. All right, let's look at USD/JPY. Been looking at that lately. Very important if you're trading commodities. Oops, pardon me. So it looks like the dollar-yen pair is still the trend change has been confirmed to the downside, but this is a bit of a long tail on there, and not something that you really want to see if you want to be bearish and trying to catch a move lower on dollar-yen. We could just be getting some bull flagging action after this strong break over the clouds. So, but we did put in a lower high and a lower low after this potential trend change candle on the prior week. So, the trend to the downside is confirmed, but that bottoming tail on last week's candle does indicate a lot of buying and a close very much off the lows. If we do get a move lower on dollar-yen, we're looking at the top of the cloud to come into play at 112.13, but that's quite a bit lower, so we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. That's what it's going to require, a move like that, if you want to really see the metal complex go higher, or at least gold and silver. I shouldn't say the metal complex because they're trading disparately. So let's look at the dollar contract. Oops, sorry. Let's look at Singapore fuel oil on that. this contract. Wow. You can see my gajillion trading levels from when I used to trade this contract way long ago. Let's look at the monthly to see how excitingly far. Wow. That's kind of cute, right? Interesting old drawings, but anyway, back to business, and back to the weekly. So the dollar is, pretty extended, not overbought, but pretty extended here above the cloud, and the cloud is flat and thin below, which asks for pullbacks generally in Ichimoku terms. Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen have both gone flat, so it's likely that we could get a continued pullback for the dollar. We do have a significant prior resistance turn support level here around 101, let's call it 101.60, something like that, so keep an eye on that. For support, if we lose that support, then we could go lower to this area where we had multiple bottoms. That's around 167, thereabouts. And then the Tenkan-sen, it will definitely offer support at 99.76.5 if we do continue this correction lower for the dollar. And I'm just going to throw a couple stocks on at the end. Let's look at some Tesla for fun. Last week's pullback in the broader markets kind of put a damper on Tesla trading after this really strong move to the upside. We did also get some upgrades, and Consumer Reports named Tesla the safest car, and a lot of hedge funds coming out suddenly bullish on Tesla after hating it all last year. But so it did actually hold up pretty well given the broader market sell-off, but disappointed some people that got overexcited about Tesla. We see that we did put in a close right pretty much, let's see, 213.69. Wow. Just slightly under the top of the cloud. The top of the cloud, weekly cloud, is at 213.85, and we closed at 213.69. And Tesla is so illiquid generally that that amount of change doesn't make that much sense. So it is actually sort of holding support at the top of the cloud. I would not say that it's significant that it's like slightly under. So it looks like it is indeed trying to hold support of the cloud. In fact, it did trade the low 211.68, and the bottom of the cloud was at like 210.36. So it didn't even trade to the bottom of the cloud. If we do get more correction in the broader markets and we do head lower, then Tesla will probably come down and potentially lose this cloud here, and maybe come down to test the Kijun-sen at 207.41, or the Tenkan-sen at 201. Also offers support for Tesla if it does trade lower. If we do get a move higher, we can see that the Chikou has some levels of resistance to deal with, and immediately it's going to have resistance at the Tenkan-sen here, which is just slightly higher than where we are right now, 215.53. And then it's going to have resistance at the cloud up here at like 232.77 is the top of the cloud there. The bottom of the cloud is 229.26. Wow, that was an impressive car driving by. I don't know if you heard that. Jeez. So those are some potential levels of resistance where Tesla could pause if we do get a move higher. We also, I've been talking about this, identified this gap fill area up here. So the beginning of that gap fill is at 228, and the end of that gap fill is at 230, thereabouts. So that is a level that could come into play also. Let's take a look at IBM, which I think is pretty interesting. I've been calling IBM the Dow fluffer for years and years. It's pretty easy to move the Dow around by moving IBM around. Also, Goldman Sachs is a Dow fluffer as well, and that's been really in play lately. But so IBM's been in a bull flag pattern. Every time it tries to get above this like 166 level, it doesn't really have a lot of luck, at least so far. But it does look nice, and I'm bullish for moving forward. If you're looking to buy a pullback on IBM, you might be looking at the Tenkan-sen, which is currently at 160.50. I would think that that would be a potentially nice level to get long IBM if you're looking to get into it for a investment type thing. It has a nice dividend. I like it for an investment. I don't own any myself, but I do like it. I would consider owning it if I was in the investment mindset. We do have potential for a bear cross here as the Kijun-sen comes up towards the Tenkan-sen, and if we did lose the Tenkan-sen support here and we did get a bear cross, then I'd be more hesitant about wanting to buy it up here, and I'd be more looking for a potential purchase down here at the cloud, which would be around 145.60. In fact, I'd be really happy to get an entry around that level, because we do have this really nice rising supportive cloud into the new year and really thick cloud support into the middle of next year. All right, I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to kill you with video length, and probably half of you have left already. So thanks a lot for joining me. If you're interested in learning more about Ichimoku charting and you managed to hold on to the end, I do teach in a chat room format, so you can check out my website at cloudchartist.com about that. If you'd like to receive notice when I upload a video like this, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel below. And if you like the video and you want to give me a thumbs up, I would appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments on the video, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.